What happens when a 78-year-old father, erased by his own children, suddenly decides to speak up? His bold move sets off a chain reaction that flips everything upside down. Just not the way you'd expect. What happened next made thousands across the country rethink everything they thought they knew about family. I woke up at 5:11 a.m. Not because I was rested, not because I had something to look forward to. I woke up because when you're 78, your body decides when you're done sleeping. And it's usually earlier than your dignity would like. So I did what I always do. Got out of bed, made my usual bitter coffee, black as my mood, and opened the door to grab the paper. That's when I saw it. A letter. No stamp. No return address. Just my name. Handwritten. And let me tell you, I'd know that handwriting even if I were blind and upside down. It was from my daughter, Karen. The last time I heard from her was back when gas was under $3, and I still thought I was a respected member of this so-called family. I didn't open it right away. First, I sat down, drank that terrible coffee, and stared at it like it might explode. Because part of me already knew this wasn't a happy birthday card. This was going to hurt. And it did. Dad, I've decided to write to you because there are some things we need to say. There are 5 reasons why we don't have a relationship anymore. I'm sorry if this comes off as harsh. 5 reasons. 5 reasons why I'm no longer considered family. Not even a "how are you" or "hope you're well." Just a numbered list of what makes me disposable. I stopped reading right there. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I reached for an old notepad, the one I used to jot down grocery lists and bills, and I wrote on the first line, "Let's rewind 5 years. Every Sunday, this house used to be full. Bikes in the driveway. My son mowing the lawn without being asked. Karen bringing over that sweet corn pie of hers, pretending like we hadn't fought last week over something ridiculous, like why I don't text. Now, silence. A kind of silence you don't just hear, you feel it, like the air gave up and left. The first crack in the foundation came when I asked my son, Scott, to repay a loan. I had lent him a few $1,000s, my retirement savings. Not a handout, not a gift, just help. "You don't need the money, Dad. You've got your pension," he said. You know what I said? I don't need the money. I need the respect. That was the last time he spoke to me. Apparently, reason number 1 Karen listed in her letter was this: you always put your values above family. You never learn to bend. No, Karen, I learned to stand. And yeah, maybe I didn't bend, because I spent my life holding everything up so you wouldn't have to. I didn't call enough. Apparently, I was supposed to be the one chasing them down for holidays, begging for scraps of attention like a dog waiting at the door. You disappeared. We didn't know what you were thinking. We stopped trying. Let me get this straight. I'm the bad guy because I gave them space. I didn't want to nag. I didn't want to be a burden. I figured if they wanted to hear from me, they'd call. They didn't. So, yeah, maybe I was quiet. Maybe too quiet. But I was always here. The porch light was on. The door unlocked. I just didn't know I had to beg to be remembered. There was a time, I'll never forget it, when my grandson turned 8. I carved him a wooden train by hand, spent 2 weeks sanding, painting, gluing it together. No one invited me to the party, but I showed up anyway. Thought it would be a good surprise. Karen opened the door, her face doing that fake smile thing people do when they wish you'd vanish into thin air. Dad, you could have called first. We had plans. This is kind of last minute. I stood there like a fool, holding a wooden toy train like it was a ticking time bomb. That day, I didn't just feel unwelcome. I felt like I had stepped into a life that had moved on without me. That was reason number 3 in her letter. You didn't accept that things have changed. You stayed stuck in the past, and that made you hard to be around. No, I didn't get on TikTok. No, I don't know how to use Venmo. And no, I don't schedule family through Google Calendar. But that doesn't make me hard to be around. That makes me me. I lived a full life before you had Wi-Fi, Karen. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling like it owed me an apology. But instead of pitying myself, I wrote down 5 things. 5 things I've been doing wrong. 5 things I'm done doing. 1. I'm done staying silent to keep the peace. 2. I'm done putting pride before connection. 3. I'm done living in memories. 4. I'm done waiting for a phone that doesn't ring. 5. I'm done pretending love doesn't expire if it's neglected. If you're reading this, and you're over 70, and your own kids treat you like a burden, they're not the only ones who forgot how to call. We've been too quiet, too polite, too forgiving for too long. But this story isn't over. Woke up the next morning still thinking about that damn letter. The words didn't just linger. They crawled under my skin and nested there. 5 reasons I was no longer worthy of a Sunday phone call. 5 reasons I'd been quietly erased from the lives I helped build from scratch. Imagine raising people, only to be treated like a glitch in their schedule. So, I did something different. I got dressed. Not because I had anywhere important to go, but because I was tired of walking around this house in flannel pajamas like a ghost in his own story. Grabbed my coat, the brown one Karen used to call Dad's armor, and stepped outside. The world was still there, annoyingly indifferent. Birds chirping, trash trucks groaning. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like part of the furniture. I walked to the local pharmacy, the one that still smells like rubbing alcohol and desperation. Behind the counter was Vivian, a woman I hadn't seen in years. 40-something, tired eyes, and the kind of voice that says, "I've seen it all, don't test me." She looked up, startled. "Mr. McLean, wow, I thought you moved or something." Translation: I thought you died. I smiled, the kind of smile you give when you're trying not to spit your coffee. "Nope, still alive. I just stopped pretending that silence from your family is normal." She blinked, then smiled, kind of sad. "Good for you, sir." "Damn right. Good for me." After grabbing my aspirin and dignity, I stopped at the bulletin board near the front exit. There it was, a flyer, printed in Comic Sans like all great tragedies. Volunteers needed to visit isolated seniors. Well, if that wasn't the universe slapping me in the face, I don't know what is. I scribbled down the number with the shaky pen they keep chained to the desk like it's going to run away. That same afternoon, I made the call. "You want to volunteer?" the young woman on the line asked, stunned. "Yes, unless the position's reserved for people with smartphones and TikTok accounts." No, you're more than welcome." I could hear her smile through the phone, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like just some forgotten relic sitting by the window. 2 days later, I was sitting in a tiny living room that smelled like rose water and quiet sadness. Across from me was Nell, 82 years old, skin like wrinkled parchment, eyes sharper than most people my age care to admit. "You're the new volunteer?" she asked. "Technically, yes. Emotionally. I'm just trying to stay human." "Well, good luck. This house hasn't seen human in a while." We got along instantly. 2 old souls trying to pretend we weren't cracking inside. We didn't need to talk much. We just sat. And in that silence, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. Later that night, I came home, made some tea, and found a small box on my porch. No label, no return address. Inside, a pair of hand-knit mittens and a note scribbled on notebook paper. I saw your video. My mom forgot my granddad, too. Thank you for reminding me not to do the same. Ellie, apartment 2B. I didn't know who Ellie was, but those mittens felt warmer than any text I never got from Karen or Scott. I hung them by the fireplace like trophies. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't break. But I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Purpose. The next day, I sat down in front of my laptop. I had never recorded a video before, unless you count the time I accidentally live-streamed myself yelling at the microwave. But this time, I knew what I wanted to say. I hit record and looked straight into the camera. Karen, Scott, I don't know if you'll ever see this. I don't know if you care, but I want you to hear it anyway. I miss you. I messed up. Not because I was evil. Not because I didn't love you. But because I didn't know how to scream when I was hurting. I was quiet when I should have shouted. I was proud when I should have begged. And now, I'm just a man sitting in a house that echoes every time the wind blows. But if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm still here. I've always been here. I saved the video. Didn't send it. Not yet. I wasn't ready. But it was a start. A crack in the dam. That weekend, I went back to the grocery store and spotted a new face at the volunteer booth. Young woman, late 20s, ponytail, sharp as a tack. "You must be Mr. McLean," she said. "Must I? Is that a threat?" "You've got a reputation. People say you're the guy who talks like he has nothing to lose." "That's because I don't." Her name was Samantha. She'd read my name in the volunteer logs, said she was impressed. "You made people cry, you know. That video. It got shared around the staff." "Well, I guess honesty is still worth something." She looked me dead in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "You don't sound like an old man, Mr. McLean. You sound like a man finally telling the truth." And just when I thought life couldn't slap me any harder, I got mail. Again. This time, a legal envelope. Certified. Official. The kind of thing that smells like trouble before you even open it. Inside, he'd used an old power of attorney I signed 15 years ago to start transferring ownership of part of my house into his name. No warning, no call, no explanation. Just cold, calculated betrayal. I went straight to the county office. "These are valid documents, sir," the clerk said, not even looking up. "But this is my house." Technically, not entirely anymore. I walked out numb. My legs moved, but my soul lagged 10 steps behind. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket and my regrets. Looked at the stars and wondered how the hell I ended up here. A house I built. A family I raised. And now? I was a tenant in my own life. I pulled out the old wooden plaque I'd carved decades ago. It said, "Home is where love lives." I laughed, bitter, dry, then flipped it over and carved something new, and dies in silence. Just then, a buzz. My phone. Karen. A message. My hand shook as I picked it up. I hadn't heard from her in years, and now, a single text could shatter or save everything. There it was, my phone screen glowing like it had something sacred to say. Karen, my daughter, my ghost, the person who vanished and took a piece of me with her. I hadn't heard her voice in years, and now she was on my screen. As pixels, as hope, as punishment. I opened the message. "Dad, I saw your video." I cried. I don't know why, but I remembered the time you carried me on your shoulders when my sandals broke. I was 6. You told me princesses had the right to go barefoot. Can I come over? That was it. No lecture, no excuses, just a crack in the wall. And let me tell you, when someone you love finally peeks through the wall they built, you don't ask why it took so long. You open the damn door. I didn't sleep that night. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, as much as my back would allow. I wiped down photos I hadn't touched in years, dusted off the dining table, the one we used to eat at before everyone got too busy. I even baked cornbread. Not because I expected applause, but because it's what I used to do when things felt whole. I wanted at least one familiar smell in the air when she walked in, something other than old wood and silence. At 10:12 a.m., a silver sedan pulled into the driveway. My heart pounded like I was 25 again, except now it hurt more and came with chest tightness. She stepped out. Same eyes, older face, a little heavier in the shoulders, like life had done some heavy lifting on her too. She didn't rush up. She didn't cry. She just stood there, waiting. And that's when I understood something. We were both scared of being the first to move. I stepped forward. No speeches, no apologies, no theatrics. Just a hug, the kind that shakes a man from the inside out. The kind that says, I'm still here, even if I forgot how to show it. We sat at the kitchen table, nursing 2 mugs of tea like peace offerings. She kept glancing around the house. You haven't changed anything, she said. Except myself, I replied. She gave a small smile, the kind people give when they remember what safe used to feel like. Then she said it. I didn't know how to come back. Neither did I. But here we were, 2 stubborn hearts pretending not to break in front of each other. And then she brought it up. The thing I'd been dreading. The thing I knew would come. Scott did something without your permission. Yeah, I said. He stole the land under my feet. She pulled out an envelope. Legal documents. I talked to him. I told him he had no right. I made him reverse it. Everything is back in your name. I didn't know whether to cry, laugh, or scream. I just sat there, hands trembling, holding on to those papers like they were oxygen. Why? I finally asked. Because even if you weren't perfect, you didn't deserve to be erased. That night, I sat down in front of the camera again, not to beg, not to hope, but to speak to everyone out there sitting in the dark like I was. If you're over 70 and your family treats you like furniture, speak. Don't wait for someone to come find you. Don't sit in silence and think that's loyalty. Loyalty doesn't mean disappearing. I was a quiet father. I thought that meant I was strong. But it just made it easier for them to forget I was ever here. The video went viral. Apparently, people like hearing the truth when it's delivered by someone who has nothing left to lose. Comments flooded in. I sent this to my mom. This made me call my dad for the first time in 5 years. I thought I was the only one sitting in silence. And suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. I went back to visit Nell the next day. She looked different, lighter. My son came by, she said, after 20 years. He saw your video, said it felt like you were talking to him. We both sat there, stunned. Sometimes the right words don't just open a door. They unlock a soul. A few days later, Samantha, the young woman from the volunteer stand, emailed me a screenshot. 12,842 views. You're internet famous, Mr. McLean, she wrote. That many people now know what it sounds like when dignity speaks out loud. I responded, took me 78 years to find my voice. I'm not about to whisper now. Then came the unexpected. A phone call. From Scott. No text, no lawyer. Just a call. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Dad? Yeah. I watched your video. You and half the country, apparently. I didn't know you felt that way. That's because you never asked. Silence. Then, I want to talk. For real. Maybe you could show me how you made that wooden train for Oliver? That was his son. My grandson. I swallowed hard. Bring him by. We'll start with sanding. But he's not touching the glue gun until he earns it. Scott laughed. It was awkward, uneven, but it was real. I hung up the phone and just sat there. Not triumphant, not healed, but whole. Not because I won, but because I spoke. Because I stopped apologizing for existing. Don't think it's over. The final chapter isn't about forgiveness. It's about transformation. And it's about to hit harder than everything before it. Funny thing about peace, it never arrives with trumpets. It shows up in sweatpants, holding a lukewarm cup of tea, sitting across the kitchen table in silence. That's how it was with Karen. She didn't start gushing. I didn't cry on cue. We talked, slowly, honestly, with a little more oxygen between words than before. Some days, she came by with groceries. Some days, with nothing at all. And on the best days, she brought Oliver, my grandson, the one who, last time I saw him, barely said more than a shy, "Hi." Now? "Grandpa, can I help you with your birdhouse?" You bet your life you can. We started small, sanding wood, picking paint, telling jokes that probably flew right over his head. "Why do birds have wings?" I asked. "So they can fly." "No, so they don't have to deal with family dinners." He laughed. Not because he got it, but because I did. Karen watched us from the doorway one day, quiet, eyes glossy. "I forgot what your voice sounded like," she said. "I forgot I had one," I replied. That night, I sat at my desk and opened the notepad I hadn't touched since that awful letter. Page 1 still said, 5 reasons my kids forgot I exist. I flipped it over. 3 reasons I'm finally living again. 1. I spoke up. 2. I stopped waiting. 3. I gave them the space to come back. And myself, the courage not to beg. A few weeks later, I got invited to Oliver's school for Grandparents' Day. Let me explain something. A man who hasn't been publicly called Grandpa in a decade, walking into a room full of kids and being introduced like royalty? It does something to you. He stood up, pointed to me, and shouted, "That's my grandpa. He builds birdhouses, and he's on YouTube." The room erupted. Suddenly, I wasn't just some old man with a weathered face. I was his story. I smiled. Wide. Real. Not because I needed the applause, but because I remembered how it felt to matter. That same night, I recorded what would become the last video in my series. The lighting was bad. My voice was tired. My hair was trying to leave me for good. But I spoke like someone who finally understood his own worth. To everyone over 70, if your kids ignore you, stop doing these 5 things. 1. Stop assuming silence is noble. It's just unheard pain. 2. Stop waiting to be invited into lives you helped build. 3. Stop thinking love is unconditional. It isn't. It needs maintenance. 4. Stop playing invisible. Start being undeniable. 5. And most of all, stop believing you've already said everything that mattered. You haven't. Say it. Say it now. That video didn't just get views. It got letters from strangers, people who watched in silence and found the courage to speak. You made me write to my father after 15 years. I didn't realize I'd abandoned my mom. Your voice gave mine permission to come out. That's the thing about telling the truth. You don't need to shout when the words hit deep enough. And then something I never expected. An invite from the local senior center. They wanted me to speak. Live. Me. A man who once couldn't get his own kids to text back. So I stood in front of a room full of gray hair, canes, hearing aids, and more fire than most high school gyms. You're not done. If you can breathe, you can rebuild. If you can hurt, you can heal. Your age is not a period. It's a semicolon. And the rest of the sentence? That's on you. Applause, tears, hugs. Not because I was inspirational, because I was real. I still get quiet days. The house still creaks. My knees still remind me they're vintage. But I no longer mistake that silence for emptiness, because now, every Friday, I hear little feet running down the hallway. Because now, my phone buzzes, and it's not a scam call. Because now, I exist, loudly, proudly, without apology. And for anyone out there who thinks the world's moved on without you, here's my final truth. Don't wait to be remembered. Remind them. Remind them who paid for that college, who held their fevered forehead at 3 a.m., who stood in the freezing rain cheering at their 6th grade soccer game like it was the World Cup. Remind them, not with guilt, with strength, with voice, with presence. You're not just someone who used to matter. You're still the foundation they walk on. So stand tall, speak loud, and don't fade quietly. Moral of the story: respect isn't automatic. Love isn't owed. But you've got the right to demand both, and to give them when you choose.